clear 5-part playbook for today. We're covering the personal finance game, the most common mistake people make, budgeting without the stress, the magic of consistency, and finally, your first action step. Welcome back to This Explainer. Look, today we are totally demystifying personal finance. We're going to figure out exactly how to make your money work for you, and we're skipping all that intimidating, complicated jargon. You won't find any boring textbook theories here. Just real, honest talk about taking control of your wealth. And let's face it, right? In today's economy, with inflation quietly chipping away at our purchasing power, getting a handle on these basic mechanics is literally more crucial than ever. It's basically the master key to unlocking your financial freedom. Let's get right into it. So, let me ask you a question that honestly, most of us are way too familiar with. Have you ever looked at your bank account at the end of the month and felt that sudden, sinking stress of wondering, wait, where did all my hard-earned money go? You earned it, you worked long hours for it, but poof, it just vanished. Well, if you felt that, you're absolutely not alone. Surprisingly, a huge number of high earners are actually living paycheck to paycheck because of this sneaky thing called lifestyle creep, where your spending magically rises every single time your income does. Nobody really taught us how to defend against that emotional toll, but today, we're going to change that. Okay, here's our clear 5-part playbook for today. We're covering the personal finance game, the most common mistake people make, budgeting without the stress, the magic of consistency, and finally, your first action step. So, part 1, the personal finance game. What is personal finance, really? Let's start from square one, because there's this massive misconception floating around that finance is exclusively for the wealthy or, for math geniuses. It is absolutely not. Personal finance is really just how you manage your money through the decisions you make every single day. It's for everyone, especially if you feel like you're always just one unexpected bill away from a total crisis. This isn't about complex algorithms. It's about the behavioral psychology of your daily choices. It's about dealing with decision fatigue and those minor daily frictions, buying that morning coffee, deciding to save a little bit of your paycheck. It's about putting a system in place. Because let's be clear, buying a coffee isn't inherently bad, but lacking a structural system, that's what actually hurts you over the decades. Basically, the whole game of personal finance breaks down into 4 super easy to understand pillars. It's just income, expenses, savings, and investing. Or put another way, what comes in, what goes out, what you keep, and what you grow. Let's make that concrete. Your income is your salary or maybe a side hustle. Your expenses, rent, groceries, those 5 streaming subscriptions. Your savings is that secure emergency cash cushion you keep for a rainy day. And investing is making your money do the heavy lifting behind the scenes, like buying index funds. If you can wrap your head around how these 4 buckets flow into one another, you've pretty much mastered the foundational rules of the whole shebang. Moving on to part 2, the most common mistake. We're calling this flipping the script.
Look, we all want to keep more of what we earn, right? But our default behavior actually prevents it. We naturally tend to spend first, and then we just sort of cross our fingers and try to save whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month. Think about it. You get paid, you start spending on rent, groceries, having some fun, and then you try to save the rest. But guess what? There's never anything left. To actually build wealth, you have to shift your mindset away from that flawed method to a winning method. You have to pay yourself first. It really comes down to Parkinson's law. That's the behavioral reality that our expenses will almost always naturally rise to meet our available income. If the cash is just sitting there in your checking account, you will inevitably find a reason to spend it. So, to win the game, the very second money hits your account, you save, and then you spend what's left.
And the real trick here isn't saving a massive, painful amount. It's building the automated habit. Even if you're only moving a tiny amount, like 500 rupees or $10, making that move to savings immediately before you spend a single dime on anything else is a total game changer. Think of it exactly like being on an airplane. The flight attendants always tell you to secure your own oxygen mask before assisting others, right? Well, in personal finance, paying yourself first is securing your own oxygen mask before you pay your landlord or the grocery store or the electric company. Over time, the psychological relief of just having that financial buffer is absolutely incredible. All right, part 3, budgeting without the stress, telling your money exactly where to go. Now, I know the word budget makes a lot of people want to run for the hills and close this explainer immediately. It sounds like a super strict financial diet, but stick with me here because we're going to look at budgeting completely differently today. A budget isn't about restricting yourself at all. It's simply about telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went.
Think of a budget like a GPS system for your wealth. Without a clear destination and a defined route, you're essentially driving blind and just hoping you end up somewhere good. Setting up those specific directions for your cash means you literally never have to stress about unexpected bills again. It brings absolute peace of mind, not restriction. A highly effective starting point for this is the famous 50-30-20 rule. You allocate 50% to your absolute needs, like rent and groceries. 30% goes to your wants, eating out, movies, those streaming subscriptions. And 20% is strictly for savings or debt repayment. But actually, let's acknowledge reality for a quick second. Life is messy, and in a lot of cities right now, rent is just outrageously expensive. If housing eats up 60% of your income, you just adjust the other categories. The 50-30-20 rule is a guiding framework, guys. It's not a prison. Having this foundational starting point to intentionally divide your income without completely hating your life, it changes everything. Which brings us to part 4, the magic of consistency. Small amounts, massive results. Let's look at how tiny, consistent habits can build incredible wealth over time. Honestly, this is my absolute favorite part of finance, because this is where the math stops being boring and starts feeling like an absolute superpower. And it all happens through compound interest, which is, without a doubt, the secret weapon of personal finance. Compound interest is essentially just money making more money. Think of it like rolling a tiny snowball down a long, snowy hill. As it rolls, it naturally picks up more snow, growing larger and moving faster until it becomes a massive boulder, all without you having to actively push it anymore. Your original savings earn interest, and then that new, much larger amount earns even more interest. Let's make this totally concrete with some real numbers. Let's follow a quick micro-narrative of a 25-year-old who decides to save just 2,000 rupees, which is about $25 every single month. I mean, that's roughly the cost of a couple of movie tickets or a few takeout meals, right? They put it somewhere where it gets a pretty modest 8% growth rate per year. It's just this small, seemingly insignificant monthly habit that doesn't really severely impact their day-to-day lifestyle.
But check this out. By the time they turn 55, that tiny little habit explodes into a massive number, over 30 lakh rupees. This entirely proves that you do absolutely not need a massive salary to become wealthy. Time and consistency literally do all the heavy lifting for you. You just have to be patient and let the math do its thing. But remember, the ultimate emotional payoff here isn't just looking at some big number on a screen. That money buys back your time, your options, and your future freedom. It allows you to make life choices based on what you actually want, rather than what you can barely afford.
And finally, part 5, your first action step, taking control today. Look, I really don't want this explainer to just be passive info that you nod at, feel super motivated about for 5 minutes, and then completely forget. Knowledge is great and all, but execution is what actually builds wealth. So I want you to grab your phone right now and follow these 3 incredibly simple steps. First, open your banking app. Second, create a separate savings account if you don't already have one. And third, set up an automatic transfer for payday. Just automate 500 or 1,000 rupees or $10, whatever you can reliably afford. Behavioral economics tells us that human willpower is a highly finite resource. By automating this process, you completely wipe out decision fatigue. The very moment you set up that automation, boom, you have officially started your financial journey. You have finally paid yourself first.
See, money doesn't have to be stressful or confusing at all. It just needs a little bit of your intentional attention and a few good automated habits. Take care of your money, and I promise it will take care of you. So, I'm going to leave you with this final crucial thought to chew on. What is the one money habit you are going to take action on today?